Hello again. Welcome to Gosho Readings by Elisa. Today I am skipping ahead again in volume 1 of the major writings of Nichiren Daishonin because there is a wonderful introduction to the Gosho I'm going to do today in the April Living Buddhism, which is the study journal that the SGI USA puts out. And I will read the background information as well at the end that's in this volume of the Gosho. But this is on practicing the Buddha's teachings. And on page 28 and 29 of Living Buddhism this month, it reads, and this is by President Ikeda, I believe. Mr. Toda made a large double circle in red next to the title on practicing the Buddha's teachings in his copy of Nichiren's writings to indicate the special importance of this writing. As his loyal and devoted disciple, I also read this letter countless times, engraving in my heart Nichiren's spirit to refute error in the realm of Buddhism. On practicing the Buddha's teachings outlines how genuine disciples strive to realize Buddhism's lofty ideals, unafraid of hardships, just as their teacher instructs. It is an important writing that contains the essence of the oneness of mentor and disciple. Let us engrave it deeply in our lives for the continuing development of Kozen Rufu and the SGI's enduring victory into the eternal future of the latter day of the law. Dated the 5th month of 1273, on practicing the Buddha's teachings was composed at Ichinosawa on Sado Island during Nichiren's exile. As the postscript indicates, it is addressed to all my followers, quote unquote, along with the instruction, quote, keep this letter with you at all times and read it over and over. In this writing, Nichiren encourages his disciples to emulate his example of practicing the Lotus Sutra as the Buddha teaches and to diligently uphold their faith. In his day, exile to Sado was tantamount to a death sentence. Most people condemned to this remote island never returned alive. During his time there, Nichiren's life was in constant danger. In another Gosho, quote, on the Buddhist prophecy, unquote, dated 1 month later, he writes, quote, the chances are 1 in 10,000 that I will survive the year or even the month, unquote. Undaunted by indescribable hardship and privations, Nichiren proclaimed his struggle as the Buddha of the latter day of the law to illuminate the darkness shrouding humankind with the light of universal enlightenment. So now I'm going to read to you on the Buddha's teachings. It is now clear that those who are born in this land and believe in this sutra, when its propagation is undertaken in the latter day of the law, will suffer persecutions even more severe than those which occurred in the Buddha's lifetime. In that age, the master was a Buddha and his disciples were great bodhisattvas and arhats. Moreover, the Buddha expounded the Lotus Sutra only after he had thoroughly taught and trained everyone who was to hear it, including the gods, humans, both lay and ordained, and the 8 kinds of lowly beings. Still, some of his followers rejected it. Now, in the latter day of the law, even though the teaching, the people's capacity, and the time for propagation are in accord, we must expect all the more hostility. For this is the age of conflict in which the pure law has been lost. Moreover, the teacher is but a common person, and his disciples come from among impious men defiled by the 3 poisons. 3 poisons are greed, anger, and stupidity, in case You aren't aware, and sometimes they say foolishness instead of stupidity. Greed, anger, and the foolishness. Back to the Gosho. It reads, for this reason, people reject the virtuous teacher and seek out evil priests instead. What is more, once you become a follower of the Lotus Sutra's true votary, whose practice accords with the Buddha's teachings, you should be fully prepared. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me start that again. What is more, once you become a follower of the Lotus Sutra's true votary, whose practice accords with the Buddha's teachings, you are bound to face the three powerful enemies. Therefore, from the very day you take faith in this teaching, you should be fully prepared to face the three kinds of persecutions, which are certain to be more terrible now after the Buddha's passing. Although my disciples had already heard this, some became so terrified when both great and small persecutions confronted us that they even forsook their faith. Did I not warn you in advance? I have been teaching you day and night directly from the sutra which says, quote, since hatred and jealousy abound even during the lifetime of the Buddha, how much worse will it be in the world after his passing? Unquote, which is from the Lotus Sutra, chapter 10. You have no reason to be suddenly frightened when you witness me driven from my home, wounded, or officially censored and exiled, this time to a distant province. Question. The votary who practices according to the Buddha's teachings should live a peaceful life in this world. Why then are you beset by the three powerful enemies? Answer. Shakyamuni faced the 9 great persecutions for the sake of the Lotus Sutra. In the distant past, Bodhisattva Fukyo, also known as Bodhisattva Never Disparaging, was attacked with sticks and stones. Shu Dao Sheng was exiled to Mount Su. Priest Fa Tao was branded on the face, and Aryasena was beheaded. The great teacher Chen Tai was opposed by the 7 northern and 3 southern sects, and the great teacher Dengyo was vilified by the 6 sects in the old capital of Nara. The Buddha and these bodhisattvas and great saints were all votaries of the Lotus Sutra, yet they suffered great persecutions. If you deny that they practiced according to the Buddha's teachings, then where can you find those who did? And a footnote notes that Chu Dao Sheng was a Chinese priest and follower of the master translator Kumarajiva. The jealousy of priests from other sects brought about his exile. Back to the main text. This is the age of conflict in which the pure law has been lost. Moreover, in this evil country, he's referring to Japan, the ruler, his ministers, and even the general public are without exception tainted by slander. They have opposed the true teaching and revered heretical doctrines and priests instead. Therefore, demons have invaded the land furiously, causing the 3 calamities and 7 disasters to strike again and again. This is indeed an accursed time to live in this land. However, the Buddha has commanded me to be born in this age, and it would be impossible to go against his decree. And so I have put complete faith in the sutra and launched the battle of the provisional and true teachings. Donning the armor of endurance and girding myself with the sword of the true teaching, I have raised the banner of Myoho Renge Kyo, the essence of the entire 8 volumes of the Lotus Sutra. Then, drawing the bow of the Buddhist declaration, quote, I have not yet revealed the truth, unquote, which is from the Muryogi Sutra, chapter 2, which is considered a preface to the Lotus Sutra. And notching the arrow of, quote, honestly discarding the provisional teachings, unquote, I have mounted the cart drawn by the great white ox and battered down the gates of the provisional teachings. Attacking first one and then another, I have refuted the Nembutsu, Shingon, Zen, Ritsu, and other sects. So these notes say, Nichiren Daishonin here uses a somewhat shortened form of the passage, honestly discarding the provisional teachings, which appears in the second chapter of the Lotus Sutra. And the reference to cart is an ornate battle cart pulled by a white ox, was traditionally the battle wagon of ancient Indian nobility. Here it symbolizes the Daigo. The cart symbolizes a vehicle to lead people to Buddhahood. There may be a new note on that in the updated version of the Gosho. I will get back to you on that. The Gosho goes on to state, some of my adversaries have fled headlong while others have retreated, and still others have been captured to become my disciples. I continue to repulse their attacks and defeat them, but there are legions of enemies opposing the single king of the law and the handful who follow him. So the battle goes on even today. Quote, the practice of the Lotus Sutra is shakubuku, the refutation of the provisional doctrines, unquote, which comes from the Hokke Gengi, volume 9. True to the letter of this golden saying, the believers of all provisional teachings and sects will ultimately be defeated and join the followers of the King of the Law. The time will come when all people, including those of learning, realization, and bodhisattva, will enter on the path to Buddhahood, and the mystic law alone will flourish throughout the land. In that time, because all people chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo together, the wind will not beleaguer the branches or boughs, nor will the rain fall hard enough to break a clod. The world will become as it was in the ages of Fu Xi and Shen Nong in ancient China. These were legendary kings who reigned over ideal societies in ancient China, according to the footnote. Back to the Gosho. Disasters will be driven from the land, and the people will be rid of misfortune. They will also learn the art of living long, fulfilling lives. Realize that the time will come when the truth will be revealed that both the person and the law are unaging and eternal. There cannot be the slightest doubt about the sutra's solemn promise of a peaceful life in this world. And that promise appears in the Lotus Sutra, chapter 5. Question: how should one practice if he is to be faithful to the Buddha's teachings? Answer: the Japanese people of this age are one in their opinion of what practice accords with the Buddha's teachings. They believe that since all vehicles are incorporated in the one supreme vehicle, no teaching is superior or inferior, shallow or profound, but that all are equal to the Lotus Sutra. Hence, the belief that repeating the Nembutsu chant, embracing Shingon esotericism, practicing Zen meditation, or professing and chanting any sutra or the name of any Buddha or Bodhisattva equals following the Lotus Sutra. But I insist that this is wrong. The most important thing in practicing Buddhism is to follow and uphold the Buddha's golden teachings, not the opinions of others. Our master Shakyamuni Buddha wished to reveal the Lotus Sutra from the moment of his enlightenment. However, because the people were not yet mature enough to understand it, he had to employ provisional teachings for some 40 years before he could expound the true teaching of the Lotus Sutra. In the Muryogi Sutra, which serves as an introduction to the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha clearly distinguished the provisional teachings from the true teaching. He declared, quote, I have preached the law in many ways, devising many means, but in these more than 40 years, I have not yet revealed the truth, unquote. It's from chapter 9 of the Muryogi Sutra. Gosho continues, the 80,000 bodhisattvas, including Bodhisattva Daishonin, fully understood why Shakyamuni had preached the provisional teachings, demonstrated that they were nothing more than means, and finally discarded them entirely. They expressed their understanding by declaring that no one can attain supreme enlightenment by embracing any of the provisional sutras, which expound bodhisattva austerities spanning millions of eons. In other words, I'm editorializing here, but in other words, provisional sutras that you had to do these difficult bodhisattva austerities over and over through many, many lifetimes for millions of eons of lifetimes before you could attain enlightenment or Buddhahood. Back to the Gosho. Finally, the Buddha came to reveal the Lotus Sutra and stated, quote, the world-honored one has long expounded his doctrines and now must reveal the truth, unquote, which is in chapter 2 of the Lotus Sutra. He also warned, quote, in all the Buddha's lands of the universe, there is but one supreme vehicle, not two or three, and it excludes the provisional teachings of the Buddha, unquote, and, quote, honestly discarding the provisional teachings, I will expound the supreme law, unquote. And, quote, never accept even a single phrase from the other sutras, unquote. So the first two quotes read there were also from chapter 2 of the Lotus Sutra and the last one from chapter 3. Gosho continues, thus, ever since that time, the supreme vehicle of the mystic law has been the only teaching profound enough to enable all people to attain in Buddhahood. Even though no sutra other than the Lotus Sutra can provide even the slightest benefit, the Buddhist scholars of the latter day claim that all sutras must lead to enlightenment because they were expounded by the Buddha. Therefore, they arbitrarily profess faith in any sutra and follow whatever sect they choose, whether Shingon, Nembutsu, Zen, Sanron, Hosso, Kusha, Jojitsu, or Ritsu. The Lotus Sutra says of such people, quote, one who refuses to take faith in this sutra and instead slanders it immediately destroys the seeds for becoming a Buddha in this world. After he dies, he will fall into the hell of incessant suffering. Also from chapter 3. Thus, the Buddha himself concluded that one's practice accords with the Buddha's teachings only when he bases his faith precisely on the standard of the sutra, believing that there is but one supreme law. Question. Then it would be wrong to say that faith in any sutra or any Buddha of the provisional teachings equals faith in the Lotus Sutra. But what of one who believes only in the Lotus Sutra and carries out the 5 practices, which the note says is to embrace, read, recite, teach, and transcribe the Lotus Sutra? So what of one who believes only in the Lotus Sutra and carries out the 5 practices of the Hoshi chapter, or follows the easy practice of the Anrankukyo chapter? Could we not say that his practice accords with the Buddha's teaching? Answer. Anyone who practices Buddhism should first understand the 2 types of practice, Shoju and shakubuku. Any sutra or treatise must be practiced in one of these 2 ways. Although scholars in this country may have studied Buddhism extensively, they do not know which practice accords with the time. The 4 seasons continually repeat themselves, each in turn manifesting its own characteristics. In summer, it is hot. In winter, cold. Flowers blossom in spring, and fruit ripens in autumn. Therefore, it is only natural to sow seeds in spring and reap the harvest in fall. If one sowed in autumn, could he harvest in spring? Heavy clothing is useful in bitter cold, but of what use is it in sweltering heat? A cool breeze is pleasant in summer, but what good is it in winter? Buddhism works in the same way. There are times when Hinayana Buddhism should be disseminated for the benefit of humanity, times when the provisional Mahayana doctrines are necessary, and times when the true Mahayana teaching must spread to lead people to Buddhahood. The 2 millennia of the former and middle days of the law required the spread of Hinayana and provisional Mahayana Buddhism, while the first 500 years of the latter day call for the Kozen Rufu of the perfect supreme teaching of the Lotus Sutra. As predicted by the Buddha, now is the age of conflict, when the pure law has been lost and the provisional and true teachings of Buddhism are hopelessly confused. When one must face enemies, he needs a sword, staff, or bow and arrows. However, when he has no enemies, such weapons are of no use at all. In this age, the provisional teachings have turned into enemies of the true teaching. When the time is right to propagate the supreme teaching, the provisional teachings become enemies. If they are a source of confusion, they must be thoroughly refuted from the standpoint of the true teaching. Of the 2 types of practice, this is shakubuku, the practice of the Lotus Sutra. With good reason, Chentai stated, quote, "The practice of the Lotus Sutra is shakubuku, the refutation of provisional doctrines," unquote. The 4 easy practices, which means practice by peaceful deeds, words, thoughts, and vows. The 4 easy practices in the Anrakugyo chapter are Shoju. To carry them out in this day would be as foolish as sowing seeds in winter and expecting to reap the harvest in spring. It is natural for a rooster to crow in the morning, but strange for him to crow at dusk. Now, when the true and provisional teachings are utterly confused, it would be equally unnatural for one to seclude himself in the mountains, carrying out the easy practice of Shoju and avoiding refuting the enemies of the Lotus Sutra. He would lose all chance to practice the Lotus Sutra. Now, in the latter day of the law, who is carrying out the practice of shakubuku in strict accordance with the Lotus Sutra? Suppose someone, no matter who, should loudly proclaim that the Lotus Sutra alone can lead people to Buddhahood, and that all other sutras, far from enabling them to attain Buddha, to attain enlightenment, only drive them into hell. Observe what happens should he thus try to refute the teachers and doctrines of all the other sects. The 3 powerful enemies will arise without fail. The true master, Shakyamuni Buddha, practiced shakubuku during his last 8 years of his lifetime. The great teacher Chentai for more than 30 years, and the great teacher Dengyo for more than 20. Nichiren has been refuting the provisional teachings for more than 20 years, and the great Sorry, I was interrupted. Come back to where I was. Okay. Where was that? Where was I? Okay. Apologies for the interruption. Okay. Returning to the Gosho, Nichiren has been refuting the provisional teachings for more than 20 years, and the great persecutions he has suffered during this period are beyond number. I do not know whether they are equal to the 9 great persecutions suffered by the Buddha, but surely neither Chentai nor Dengyo ever faced persecutions as great as Nichiren's for the sake of the Lotus Sutra. They encountered only envy and slander, whereas I was twice exiled by the regent, this time to a remote province. Furthermore, I was nearly beheaded at Tatsunokuchi, wounded on the forehead at Komatsubara, and slandered time and again. My disciples have also been exiled and thrown into prison, while my lay followers have been evicted and had their property confiscated. How can the persecutions faced by Nagarjuna, Chentai, or Dengyo possibly compare with these? Understand then that the votary who practices the Lotus Sutra exactly as the Buddha teaches will without fail be attacked by the three powerful enemies. Shakyamuni himself, Tiantai, and Dengyo were the only three who perfectly carried out the Buddha's teachings in these more than 2,000 years. Now, in the latter day of the law, the only such votaries are Nichiren and his disciples. If we cannot be called votaries faithful to the Buddha's teachings, then neither can Shakyamuni, Tiantai, nor Dengyo. Could Devadatta, Kokalika, Sunakshatra, Kobo, Jikaku, Chisho, Shantao, Honen, Ryokan, and others like them be called votaries of the Lotus Sutra? So just to know who these people are. Some of this has already been mentioned in earlier Goshos, but Sunakshatra was a priest who devoted himself to Buddhist austerities and attained a limited form of enlightenment, but he was arrogant and thought he had mastered Buddhism. He is said to have fallen into hell alive. Who else does he talk about? Could Shakyamuni Buddha, Chentai, Dengyo, or Nichiren and his disciples be followers of the Nembutsu, Shingon, Zen, Ritsu, or other sects? Could the Lotus Sutra be called a provisional teaching and the Amida Sutra and others be the Lotus Sutra? None of this could ever be possible. Even if East were to become West and West become East, even if the earth and all its trees and plants were to fly up and become the heavens, while the sun, the moon, and the stars tumbled down and became the earth. What a great pity it is that all the Japanese people are delighted to see Nichiren and his disciples suffer at the hands of the three great, powerful enemies. What befell another yesterday may befall oneself today. Nichiren and his disciples have but a short time to endure, the time it takes for frost or dew to vanish in the morning sun. When our prayers for Buddhahood are answered and we dwell in the land of eternal enlightenment, where we'll experience the boundless joy of the law, what pity we will feel for those suffering incessantly in the depths of hell. How they will envy us then. Life flashes by in but a moment. No matter how many terrible enemies we may encounter, banish all fears and never think of backsliding. Even if someone were to cut off our heads with a saw, impale us with lances, or shackle our feet and bore them through with a gimlet, as long as we are alive, we must keep chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Then, if we chant until the very moment of death, Shakyamuni, Taho, and all other Buddhas in the universe will come to us instantly, exactly as they promised during the ceremony at Eagle Peak. Taking our hands and bearing us upon their shoulders, they will carry us to Eagle Peak. The two saints, which are Bodhisattva Yakuo and Yuze, the two heavenly gods, referring to Bishamonten and Jikokuten, and the 10 goddesses, the Jurasetsu, or the 10 daughters of the demon mother Kishimoji. These will guard us while all the Buddhist gods raise a canopy over our heads and unfurl banners on high. They will escort us under their protection to the Buddha land. How can such joy possibly be described? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nichiren, the 5th month of the 10th year of Bun-ei, or 1273. Postscript. Keep this letter with you at all times and read it over and over. So the background provided in this version of this translation of the Gosho says, in May 1273, still suffering the severe privations of exile on Sado Island, Nichiren Daishonin wrote to his disciples and followers. The title, quote, on practicing the Buddha's teachings, unquote, means to practice in exact accordance with the Buddha's teachings. There are two meanings to this. One is that Nichiren Daishonin lived in accord with Shakyamuni's teachings and fulfilled all the prophecies of the Lotus Sutra. Another is that the Daishonin's disciples in the latter day of the law are to fulfill his teachings. For the Daishonin, teachings meant the Lotus Sutra expounded by Shakyamuni, and to modern man it is Nam-myoho Renge Kyo of the three great secret laws and the teachings compiled in the Gosho. Nichiren Shonin, the 26th high priest of Nichiren Shoshu, stated that the title indicates the three great secret laws, the object of worship, the invocation, and the high sanctuary of true Buddhism. Nichiren Shonin, by the way, it's his Gosho that it's his Gohonzon, or a copy of the Gohonzon he inscribed that we practice to today in the SGI. The Gosho continues, the background continues. Briefly, the Buddha's teachings corresponds to the Daigo Hanzan, which is different now, and practice to the chanting of Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, both of which require the place, which once was the high sanctuary of Shohondo and now is our own Gohonzon in our own homes, in which the Gohonzon is enshrined and worshipped. In this Gosho, the question is raised, why must believers experience hardships when the sutra promises a peaceful life in this world? Nichiren Daishonin points out that votaries of the Lotus Sutra who practice exactly according to the Buddha's teachings are bound to face the three powerful enemies. In other words, one only proves himself to be a true votary by facing and overcoming great obstacles for the sake of the Buddha's teachings. The most important thing is to follow and uphold the spirit of those teachings by mercifully transmitting true Buddhism to other people. Real happiness is not the absence of all problems, but the absolute confidence that any problem can be solved. A very, very true and powerful statement. 1 month before writing this Gosho, the Daishonin had completed the true object of worship, another Gosho, in which he explained the Gohonzon. He revealed that enlightenment derives from having firm faith in the Gohonzon and stressed the importance of practice for one's own sake. On practicing the Buddha's teachings was subsequently written to clarify the importance of the altruistic practice for others. What a great, powerful Gosho. So now I would like to read the updated background on this Gosho, which comes from the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, Volume 1. And this Gosho appears on pages 391 to 397 in that volume. And the background reads, Nichiren Daishonin wrote this letter to all his followers in the 5th month of 1273, while he was still enduring the severe privations of exile on Sado Island. The title on practicing the Buddha's teachings indicates practicing in exact accordance with what the Buddha taught. The title can be said to indicate two important points. One is that Nichiren Daishonin lived in accord with Shakyamuni's teachings and fulfilled all the prophecies of the Lotus Sutra. The other is that the Daishonin's followers in the latter day of the law, such as now, are to carry out and fulfill his teachings. In this letter, the question is raised, why must believers experience hardships when the Lotus Sutra promises, quote, peace and security in the present existence, unquote. Nichiren Daishonin answers that those who practice the Lotus Sutra exactly according to the Buddha's teachings are bound to face the three powerful enemies whose appearance was predicted in the encouraging devotion chapter of the sutra. In other words, one proves oneself to be a true votary only by facing and overcoming great obstacles for the sake of the Buddha's teachings. In essence, this means to forthrightly make clear what is the correct teaching of Buddhism and to mercifully transmit the teaching to others. 1 month before writing this letter, the Daishonin completed the treatise, The Object of Devotion for Observing the Mind, in which he revealed the true object of devotion, the Gohonzon, for the people of the latter day of the law. He also revealed that the practice based on it chanting with firm faith in it leads to enlightenment. So that's a little bit different. It's the Gohonzon, and instead of the place, it's talking about the actual practice. This present letter was written subsequently to clarify the importance of another practice, shakubuku, or spreading this teaching to others. So that concludes the reading of On Practicing the Buddha's Teachings. It is an intense Gosho. It has wonderful passages, many of which my old copy of the Gosho has underlining in different colors. And yeah, it was, I've read this Gosho many times because I read volume 1 over and over for about 8 years as I attempted to read the entire Gosho collection, which was much smaller then. First it was volume 1 and 2, then volume 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 8. And I actually think I probably stopped when it reached 6 or 7 volumes, maybe even 5, I don't know. But I certainly read this Gosho many times, at least once each year, and always found new and amazing moments to reflect upon in it. And I hope you do as well. I really appreciate you listening and having a seeking mind to hear the teachings of Nichiren, the Buddha of the latter day of the law. And if you enjoyed this Gosho, you can give me a thumbs up. And of course, I hope you will subscribe to the channel so that you can access all of the Gosho readings that I've posted so far and ones to come in the future. Thank you very much. And please enjoy the rest of your day and your lives. And let us send our prayers to the Ukraine that is suffering so greatly, and as well to the Russian people who are also suffering under the leader that they have. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.